Hi guys, welcome to this episode of Yoga Break It Down. This one's going to be a little different in that we're not focusing on physical poses, but some of the basics of meditation. But as you might expect from me, Yoga Suze, we're not necessarily focusing on the traditional ways to go about meditating. So let's start with some basic idea about meditation. So first and foremost, your goal is not to get your mind to shut up. If you think that's your goal, you're going to sit and your mind's going to start to wander and you think you suck at meditating and you're going to stop. And I'm not saying that because I want you to think it's not the goal, and it is. It's not the goal. So one approach to this, and I take sort of a mindfulness approach, we're going to observe what we do as a human. That's really the meditation. We're observing. And we're also going to involve breathing because we don't do enough of it. And breathing is going to help our circulation and help with some of those benefits that we go for as we're exploring meditation, like stress reduction. Let's start with breathing. We're going to breathe in and out through the nose, preferably. If you struggle with breathing in and out through the nose, I highly recommend, if you have not looked into it yet, to consult with an ear, nose, throat doctor and or an allergy specialist to start to see what are the reasons that the breath is not flowing freely through the nostrils. So in the meantime, feel free to breathe through your mouth. One advantage to breathing through your nostrils is you have smaller areas that the breath is going in, so it's going to actually slow down the breath. And a little bit later in this instruction, I'm going to talk about another reason why focusing our attention here is going to be helpful. Start to tune into your breath. So that means notice if you're breathing or if you're holding your breath. And if you're holding it, start. So we take some breath in, we take some breath out, right? No, we're not going to start with taking breath in. So breath should be continuous, really, right? It should be happening all the time. There shouldn't be a start to it because it should be happening continuously. But we tend to hold our breath. So we got to start it up one way. So I actually want you to start with an exhalation. So we're going to focus on letting some breath out. And you're going to start to feel your lungs deflating a little bit. Hopefully, you'll get more and more into this. And then as you push a little bit more out and you push a little bit more out, you may get so far down the lungs that you start to feel this in your abdominal area. And so the ending could be with the abs drawing in towards the spine. Envision your abs moving to kiss your spine or your belly button moving to kiss your spine. The lungs are often larger than people really think about. The lungs go down to that lower part of the rib cage in the front. So there is a lot of area to breathe in and out of. So once you completed that exhalation, now you've cleared out the lungs as much as possible and created new room for new fresh breath. So when you start another inhalation, try to direct the breath as low into the lungs as you can. Normally, our breath is not directed at all, but we end up getting the first part of our breath into the very upper part of the lungs, and the breath expands upward. So if you start way up high, there's not much room for it to expand. So we're going to direct the breath way down low to the lowest part of our lungs that we can envision with our mind since we can't see them. And we're going to expand with that breath outwards and upwards. So the lungs, as they expand, might extend into the rib cage and actually hinge it open slightly. One exercise you might try if you choose to lay on your back is resting there with the fingers touching, the hands cupping on the lower rib cage. And you want to relax your shoulders and relax your arms. If the elbows aren't able to reach the floor or your bed or wherever you're laying, you might have some folded up towels under each so that, again, the arms can fully relax. And so as you start to take this inhale, and direct the breath down low, and you get that expansion, you can see that the fingers start to move away from each other. And then when you release, the fingers come back in contact with each other. So that's a great exercise to do when you're laying down, because having a hand on part of your torso can draw awareness to your breathing as well. Choosing a position to be in for your meditation. Often we see people meditating sitting, often sitting in maybe a yogic position on the floor. And that may not work for you for multiple reasons. So one, the knees. So most yoga seated positions, they might look like they'd be the easiest thing to do in yoga, but honestly, I actually think they're the most challenging because of the knees, because of the hips, because of the ankles. All of those areas very likely would have issue with a lot of those seating positions. And then there's the spine. Until you have practiced yoga for a while, we have not developed the length and strength in the spine to be comfortable in a seated position like that. Another thing to consider is many of us are sleep deprived, myself included. I have a very busy schedule, and to force myself to endure one more thing is counterproductive for meditation, for yoga. So I recommend, actually, if you're new to meditation, starting at laying down, even laying down in bed, and it could be in conjunction with when you first wake up or when you go to sleep, or just going to your bed for the meditation, or laying down on a yoga mat or the carpet or a blanket, anything that's comfortable. As you'll see in one of my demonstrations of poses here, I'm laying on my back. But like we've talked about in some other videos, if you extend your legs flat on the floor in this pose, it's going to create an arc in the back that can pinch. It can be detrimental to those of you specifically who have chronic back pain anyways. So my favorite way to be on the floor, and this could be during relaxation at the end of a yoga class as well, is you're laying with your back on the floor, knees bent, feet on the floor. Bring your feet a little wider than hip distance apart, and then lean your knees against each other, and that allows the legs to be fully relaxed and not active, even though you brought your legs into this different position. But what this position does is it untucks the tailbone or tilts the pelvis forward and up to lengthen the lower back and bring the spine from lower to upper more even along the floor. And here you can have your arms in a comfortable position. So as you note, I don't practice relaxation or meditation in a symmetrical position usually. And I'm inviting you to explore that as well. Really, we can't get into meditation if we're uncomfortable. So we started to get the breath flowing, and we're going to encourage ourselves to keep it flowing during this practice. So the next part of meditation is to observe. One reason why people use the breath in meditation is it's an easy point that's not complex. There's not a lot going on that we can bring our mind back to from wandering. Your mind will wander. Your mind will heavily wander. Your mind will go into your to-do list. Your mind will go into why you're angry at someone from 2 days ago. It's going to go everywhere. So one basic approach to meditation is you get in your position, you start your breathing, you try to focus on your breath. If it is difficult to focus on your breath, one thing I encourage people to try is to add a few words with this. Not so many that's getting your mind going again, but if you just let the words go through your mind, I am inhaling as you're inhaling, and I am exhaling as you're exhaling. Sometimes that really makes a difference for people to stay focused on the breathing longer. And then, like I said, your mind will wander. You may have decided that you're going to meditate for 5 minutes, and it is not until your little alarm that you set because you have other things to do in your life goes off telling you your 5-minute meditation has ended, that you realize that your mind has wandered. Your mind has been all over the place for the entire 5 minutes. There was zero focusing on the breath. That's fine. You did not fail as a meditator because you realized at the end of the 5 minutes that your mind had wandered. So this is the idea, the simplicity of the idea behind mindfulness meditation is we're being mindful, we're being aware, we're paying attention of what we as crazy, funny humans do all the time. And what we do is we do not be in the moment. We let our mind go all over to the future, to the past, to fantasy, to frustration, over and over and over again. So mindfulness is we start to notice that. So why is that important? So the breathing and the relaxing reduces stress, which is important for many of our health concerns. The awareness of what we may have thought was a failure at meditation is the first step to more awareness. So next time you meditate, one, you might notice during instead of after that your mind was wandering, and you might bring it back to the breath. This leads to things like you notice when you're driving that your mind is wandering and not really focused on the road. You might start to be aware that a thought of something that is actually not occurring in a moment brings up rage, anger, sadness, all types of emotions, again, for something that's not actually even happening. Or your awareness might start to come in moments as things are happening. You might notice that someone says something to you and that you are starting to feel upset, and you notice that before you react. So you actually have choice of how you respond instead of react. So these are the benefits of meditation. There are no failures. So if you like this idea, if you find it beneficial that you spend more time with the mind quiet, and that is a goal of yours, if you find that, I want to let you in on what I call a meditation hack. I realized at some point on my meditating, just as in the idea we've heard of when people are recalling a past event, their eyes turn a certain way, they look a certain way, and when they're trying to invent something, think of words, draw something up, the eyes are looking another way. I stumbled upon the realization that when I am not thinking, when my mind is not wandering, my eyes are in a specific position. And I think this has not been scientifically proven yet, so I think that putting your eyes in this position will stops the mind from wandering while the eyeballs are in this position. And it's interesting that this is in some ways tied to your breath, and this is what I was alluding to earlier. So when we notice our mind is wandering and we decide to focus back on the breath and we breathe through our nostrils, our focus goes towards the nose. And what happens is our eyeballs adjust so that they're looking. It's not exactly straightforward. It's ever so slightly down and ever so slightly in, to the best I can tell from not actually looking at my eyeballs while they're doing this. And in that position, my mind is not wandering. So play with this if it interests you, and please comment below if you've learned anything about that, because as far as I can tell, no one has described it in that way. So let's collectively get some experiences together to see if that's really happening, if this is our meditation hack. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Yoga Break It Down. I'm Yoga Suze. Hit that subscribe button, add this video to your watch later list, and remember, yoga is truly for everybody. Uber drivers need yoga, artists need yoga, Dan Harris needs yoga, and you, baby, you definitely need yoga. So I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.